recognizing that no amount of stuff you add onto the heap, no, the benefits, the volunteer days, the better salaries, whatever, matter at all if we don't address the person's mindset as they walk through the door. Like we've taken the human being out of so much of the work conversation. It's all about KPIs and strategic priorities, and nobody said, "Hey, what matters to you?"
You're listening to Real Returns, where we learn how real leaders are finding real purpose through the work they do. Join your hosts, Andrew and Dan, as they interview leaders about how their businesses are creating meaningful change for individuals and communities around the world.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Real Returns podcast. I am your host, Andrew Reichert. I am so excited for today's episode because it's somebody that I would actually call a friend. Mary and I have gotten to know each other over the past couple of years. Originally met through Strategic Coach. I do my coaching in Toronto, and so I get to see her in her home country of Canada. And I've just grown to really love and appreciate the work that she does. She leads with heart. She's a founder, communicator, and really a person who thinks deeply about the connection between the human and the work that we do. So Mary, founder and CEO of OnPrpose, so glad to have you with us today.
Thank you, Andrew. What a lovely introduction. This is so fun. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you here. So what are you up to these days? And maybe you could even talk a little bit about how you got into doing what you're doing.
Sure thing. So thanks for that. Well, I think most of what I'm spending my time on these days is thinking about how to have more connected organizations. And so, what does that look like in a world where we are hyper connected? Like we've never been more connected, yet more isolated from
Mm.
each other, from collaborative work, from teams, et cetera. So, thinking about what's at the heart of getting people connected to what they do and motivated, inspired by it. So, where does that come from? Well, I started my company On Purpose. That's the name of it. About 6 years ago. I started it intentionally and it's named On Purpose.
Love it. Yeah, it's such a good
um,
name.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. After many years, a couple of decades, having been in the marketing communications space, helping organizations build the story of who they are, walking leadership teams through, who are we? What do we believe? What differentiates us, et cetera. And thinking about the power of that work really comes back to what we believe about the world. And then that drives our purpose. And then that purpose really organizes people around a cause or a mission. And started the company really to fill the gap for getting organizations more tapped into purpose, but getting people inside those organizations connected to that mission, because oftentimes leadership teams will go through the process and be excited about it and feel energized and all on the same page, and then they look at their team, they share the video, they share the values or whatever it is, and the team isn't as engaged and connected. And so that's the first part of the work, and the second part of the work is getting the team involved. So it's important work
Amazing.
we do. Yeah.
Yeah, let me back up to something you said. So you said something like we're more connected than we have ever been, but we're more isolated than we've ever been. That's an interesting statement. Can you unpack that? And I'm curious, when did that start happening? Like where my head goes is, COVID, or is it social media, or is it AI? Like what are the things that actually drove us to being where we are today?
Gosh, it's all of the above, I would say. Starting with the advent of how technology has taken over our lives, and we, live through the screen of our phones and we can do almost anything from there. So I go back like 15 years ago in my career when, that the whole, I guess the whole organization sort of turned on its head and it became more about the technology, less about the people. Whether that be, we spend all of our time behind our laptops, we do work through our phones. And then there's been an amplification effect of that over the last 15 years. So COVID, certainly now we're working from different locations more than we've ever been before. Social media, absolutely. Like people are sitting or are interacting from behind a screen. And there's even research around that. I read an article in The Economist recently about how, funny enough, it was about wine sales and how wine sales are down globally.
You would think, that, well, which is also true. I mean, there's definitely this
Yeah.
moderation culture.
Yeah.
But maybe that's actually what's creating the less joy in the work that we're doing. Is that it? I don't know.
Well, so it's funny because my automatic thought would be, yeah, of course, we're all moderating because we want to be healthier and we're aware of the impact of alcohol. But actually, the premise in this article is that we are more disconnected. We're less likely to get together and gather,
Mm,
where wine is a lubricant. Wine is something, you use for celebration and stuff, but we're all kind of sitting in our homes by ourselves, not doing these things.
yeah, that's
So,
interesting.
yeah.
Well, and I also just saw Gallup, they do this kind of state of the global workplace report, and they were just talking about employee engagement has hit a record low. So, I kind of couldn't believe that because we're all investing so much right now in productivity tools and AI and investing in our people and yet our people are disengaged. Like what do you attribute that to?
Gosh, that's so a record low. I'd be interested to see what that actual number is because it's been tracking at about 85 to 87% of the world's employees are unengaged in work,
Hmm.
which to me is like mind-boggling because human beings are wired, it's in our DNA for two things: to connect and to contribute, to make progress. That's like it's embedded in our survival instinct, in fact. And so
Mm.
and then billions of dollars are spent globally trying to get people engaged. And I mean, I've been in organizations before I started this company that had all the right things on paper: a great culture, we fed people breakfast on Fridays, we gave them volunteer days, and we had parties and stuff like that. We let people operate out of their strengths and things. And so, what's the miss in all of that? And that is actually one of the problems that I started the company to solve. Like, and it started about, what would it have been, about 10 years ago. I'm on a leadership team at an organization of about 100 and some odd people. And this is the same company that had all the great things. And I'm like, why are people apathetic, disengaged, taking stress leave? Like, what's at the heart of this? And I had the insight at the time, and I'm not sure if it's just my own programming, but recognizing that no amount of stuff you add onto the heap, no, the benefits, the volunteer days, the better salaries, whatever, matter at all if we don't address the person's mindset as they walk through the door. And we
Mm.
live in a culture where we've positioned work as a necessary evil. It's the thing you do to be rewarded with time off. Um, we don't reach into the hearts of people and connect them to what they care about, and show them how what they care about and their strengths contribute to a mission that also matters. Like, we've taken the human being out of so much of the work conversation. It's all about KPIs and, strategic priorities. And nobody said, hey, what matters to you? Employee number 2, 3, 4, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not
Well,
surprised that number's low. It's unfortunate.
yeah, it's so interesting. And your firm, named On Purpose, which I love. I, wrote a book called Priorities on Purpose. And so that was when I first met you. I was like, we need to talk. Um, but how do you actually do that for employees? Like, how would you define purpose? One, and two, how do you get employees to live into that?
Dude, I love this question. So my definition of purpose, actually, I mean, and it's evolved over time, but it really comes back to what the Japanese definition is, which some you may have heard of the Ikigai framework. Yeah,
Hmm.
of course.
Yeah.
Of course, the purpose guy knows about it, right? So, purpose is make what makes life worth living. And that is leaning into what you're great at, what you love doing. It's the sort of center of the Venn diagram here. So if you layer all these things on top of each other, this is your purpose: what you're great at, what you love doing, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for.
Hmm.
So when I think about that, if every person was tapped into that Venn diagram on themselves, then they would be living and guided by purpose. However, we teach everybody to look at the wrong things, those extrinsic measures of success: the salary, the house you have, the car, how quickly you move through your career, whatever it is. And so, how do we get employees back into that? Well,
Mm.
we started a program a long time ago. The genesis of it was in some of the work I did to study positive psychology about 10 years ago, to help people connect to, number one, that they are the designer of their life.
Mm.
So many people, and our culture is organized around things are happening and they're not, they're happening to me, not
Yeah.
for me, that whole thing, right?
There's this like reactive instead of proactive approach.
That's right. That's right. And so
Yeah.
some of the research in positive psychology is a really powerful tool to use to help people see that, as opposed to, me or you saying, "Hey, you know what? You can design your life." That, for people who aren't wired that way, it's helpful to show them some of the positive impact and stuff in from the research in that. But we started a program that we call Inside Out, and it is an employee engagement program where we focus on individual employees' sense of purpose and the story of who they are, what matters to them, what their strengths are, where they want to contribute. And so they walk out the other end of that with a story that is their identity tapped into the work that they do.
Interesting. And I know you're
Yeah.
really big on stories. Storytelling is a big part of what you do. What is it about the story that like helps that to become real for a person?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that. So stories change people and people change the world. And um, when you think about it, everything starts with a story. You wake up in the morning and you have a story about what that day is going to look like, what's going to happen to you, how you're going to show up, and all of that. So the stories we tell ourselves shape our experience. And oftentimes we allow the story just to run on autopilot, but you can be really intentional about that. The words we use shape our experience. Just even this difference. You get up in the morning, you know you're going to work. You could say, I have to go to work. I have to have all these meetings. I'm going to be so busy. And then I have a commitment at the end of the day, and I'm not going to have any time for myself. Or you could say, I get to show up at a place that values me enough to invite me to all these meetings so I can contribute my unique strengths or whatever it is. I've been invited to participate in something after work that is meaningful where I get to contribute. And so my day is a manifestation of my best gifts brought out into the world. Both things are true. The only thing that changed is the story you tell yourself about it. So our program gives people the opportunity to recognize the pattern that's running in the background today and then get very intentional about what matters to me, what are my strengths, how can I best contribute, and how do I show that in my work every day.
Wow.
um yeah.
Now, Mary, what would you say to the skeptic? So, like, you and I are wired very similar. We could geek out on this all day, but I've heard you say that people need to be committed, humble, and open to seeing what's available. And so that feels like you get the population that's willing to engage in what you're talking about down to a smaller size. So how do you, what do you do with, the rest of the world? These are folks that are already disengaged and they're just saying, "Hey, I don't want to do this."
hmm Oh, what a good question. So um let's start with, I think, what I said earlier, which was about how people are wired for connection and contribution. That somewhere deep inside every single person is a desire to be contributing and feel successful at the end of an effort, whether it's the work day or something you did in your community or whatever, right? I do agree that a lot of people, this is maybe new thinking or maybe fringe thinking for a lot of people. But I can tell you a story. I did this work, this was quite a while ago, at a manufacturer. And they had, a handful of management employees or like office employees, but most of the employees were working in the factory at an hourly rate. And the owner wanted to invest in the employees and invited me in to do this program. And we did it over a 12-month period. So we did like one session every month. And the first 3 sessions were mandatory for people. They had to attend. And then after that, they didn't have to come anymore, but they were paid for their time and all of that. And I can tell you, I've never been more intimidated to present this type of thinking, because I'm thinking, what are these guys? They're going to be like, what does she know? She has no idea about my life or what I live or whatever, right? And so I asked them all at the very beginning to raise their hand. I'm like, who doesn't want to be here, but they have to be here? And like, I don't know, let's say 60% of the people were brave enough to raise their hands. And I just said, well, listen, like, I commit to trying to make this 2-hour window of your day valuable. And hopefully you walk away with something. At the end of the day, ask the question, was there value in this? And most of them raised their hand. I got nodding and all of that. The more compelling thing was that they all continued to show up, maybe with a few, like 10% or so that sort of trailed off, but they all continued to show up for the 12-month period. So I believe that it exists in people. We just need the opportunity to share with them the thinking. And it's not just my thinking and beliefs, it's rooted in the academic research around positive psychology. Like, we can see what happens when people change how they think about something, then they change how they feel about it, then they change what they do about it. So changing the story in your head can change your life. And it's been proven. It's not my idea. It's been out there.
Yeah. Well, by the way, again, you're preaching to the choir. So back about 10 years ago, actually 12 years ago at this point, I was diagnosed with cancer. You know this. And I read a book called Miracle Morning, and it had this morning routine that I still do today. And two of those steps, it's the acronym SAVERS: silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, scribing. Scribing's journaling. But two of those steps, I always get a little bit of an eye roll. And you probably already know what they are. The concept of affirmations and visualization. People are like, what do you mean affirmations? I'm like, I affirm the things that I believe to be true about who I am and my day. And visualization, I literally visualize my day going the way that I hope that it's going to go. And that's exactly what you're saying. Like, I start with a story that I'm telling myself that is literally authoring my day before the day starts. So I get it. I geek out on this stuff all the time. I think that there's a world, I just want to acknowledge the rest of the world that's not like you and I, that they don't see that opportunity. And I appreciate what you said. Humans are wired for connection and contribution. And so everybody's wired for that. And how do you get people to realize that, really those stories are a way for them to engage in what they're already wired to want to do?
Oh, absolutely. And giving people the opportunity, like, I look at it like I don't know, letting the light switch go on in someone's mind. And so having the chance to walk people through some of the thinking. Like, so what you're talking about, you're training your brain to look for certain things. And when you
Yeah.
train your brain to look for certain things, you can find it. You will find what you're looking for. You buy a blue car, all a blue Acura, whatever, that's the car you start seeing on the road everywhere, because your brain is looking for it. The brain takes in more than 2 million bits of information every
Yep.
minute through our five senses. It can't process all of that, so it makes choices, and it makes choices based on your programming. You've decided to start every day programming to look for how the day can go as well as possible for you based on what's important to you. And then also affirming who you are, like who you are and how you're going to show up to that day. So your brain is now, you've trained your brain. It's like there's science involved to look for those things. I always use the example of Jason Bourne in the Bourne Identity.
Oh,
Have we
yeah.
talked about this before?
I don't know if we
Um,
have. One of my favorites, though.
Oh yeah, it's so good, right?
Yeah. He's
And
like,
and
how do
one
I know every license plate number of the car outside?
that's
And how do I know that the guy at the bar is carrying a gun and knows how to handle himself? It's so
yeah,
good. Situational awareness is really what it is.
absolutely. And he's been trained, even though he's got amnesia, he's been trained to look for risks to human life or whatever CIA
Yeah.
agent or whatever get. So and that's real. He's like, I know all the license plates in the parking lot. I know that guy's got an American accent, but he's really Russian. Like, how do I know all that?
Yeah.
Because I've been trained to look for it.
Yep.
So we know it's possible. It's in the movies.
So good. So good. Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. Let me switch gears a little bit and talk about AI just because everybody's talking about it. So why don't we talk about it? You know, I hear you talking about the importance of human connection and the innate desire that we have to connect. And yet, AI can do so much that we used to hire a human to do. In fact, I think you built like a website over a weekend using Claude. And that's not something that you historically would have done yourself. And in fact, you probably would have hired a human to do it that you would have collaborated with. So now that we have these tools, how do they impact the human connection piece?
Yeah, I love this. So the tools are amazing, and they're making like routine projects and combing the universe of information so easy. And I could not be further from a coder, but I created beautiful web pages from the code, which is amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Um so what does that make? So I believe that the real valued skill sets are going to be the ones that are related to human connection, to human insight, to that thinking that's higher level, that can then organize all of the stuff to do. And so now more than ever, connection stands out as a differentiator versus the thing. Like, let's call it a soft skill, communication. And when I define communication, I define it as connection. It's not just like, we emailed everybody and let them know about things.
Yeah,
Communication
it's
is
not just
is
one way, it's two-way.
right. There's really, it's relaying information, but it's also relating to something or someone, right?
Yeah.
We would call that a soft skill, and we don't really train it in leadership programs and things like that. We talk about it and we want people to have those skills, but the truth is, the people who grow up in the ranks in organizations are people who figure that out or have those skills intuitively. We haven't invested in communications as a strategic function, or many
Hmm.
organizations, most organizations haven't. And now we have a bunch of people. So think about the people who are like the super, super smart, trained, like lawyers and data scientists and, I don't know, accountants and all that. So much of the work that they used to get paid for is going to be automated. What bubbles to the surface is the ability to manage relationships, relationship complexity, emotions, like all of the things that sit in this, what was called a soft skill, like a soft, I guess
Yeah.
it's a hard skill now. It is the skill.
Yeah, that's so good. And so do you think that just EQ and soft skills become more valuable in the age of advanced technology?
I do, because
Yeah.
those are the skills that computers have yet to tackle.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're still human beings, 8 billion of us on the planet, and we're still, building companies and solving problems for human beings. So the deeper understanding and ability to connect with human beings becomes the new frontier.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Mary, this has been so much fun. If folks want to stay connected to what you're up to and what you're building, how can folks follow you?
Amazing. Thank you. This has been so fun. So, the company website is onpurpose.com. You can find me on LinkedIn at Mary Fearon, Instagram, Mary M. Fearon, um, and the Mary Fearon website, maryfearon.com.
All the things. Amazing. Well, I am following you. I love seeing your LinkedIn posts. I hope our listeners follow you as well. Thanks for being on the show. Listeners, thanks so much for listening in. Listeners, you may already know this, but we do have a newsletter we produce at realreturnspodcast.com. So if you're not already subscribed to it, check it out. Thanks so much for listening. We will catch you all next time. And thanks again, Mary, for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Real Returns. Tune in every other Wednesday for more conversations around investing, entrepreneurship, and how business can instill a sense of purpose.